are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for all right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth, and it's great to have you guys here on this Tuesday, February 6th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today, as always, but before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link, that is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. Again, it really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that being said, let's get right into what we are going to talk about on the show today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about a couple of things. So we're going to talk about all the stuff that's going on in college football, the college football playoff, the NCAA, dealing with teams suing them when it comes to the NIL laws. So we'll get into that, because there's a lot going on in college football right now here in the off season for it. So I'll give you my opinion on some of those things. Then we'll also talk about Roger Goodell's recent comments, at the Super Bowl. A couple of big news, with what he had to say regarding, a game being played in Brazil for opening weekend. So we'll get into that. Then in the second part of the show, we're going to talk about the 49ers' journey back to the Super Bowl. A lot has happened, since they last made the Super Bowl playing against the Kansas City Chiefs back in the 2019-2020 season, back in Super Bowl 54. So we'll talk about, the journey that they've been on to get back to this point. And I know because I've spent a lot of time talking about the Chiefs, we got to give the 49ers some love too. I feel like I've kind of talked about the Chiefs more, but so we'll talk about the 49ers and their journey back to the Super Bowl. The third part of the show, we'll get into the media day. I'll give you my takeaways from that, what players had to say. Then in the final part of the show, there was an article on CBS, and it was the rankings of the starters for the Super Bowl. So I'll go through that, and I'll give you my thoughts on that as well. So with that being said, let's get into the first topic, which is talking about a couple of things here, college football stuff, and then, of course, we'll talk about what Roger Goodell had to say when he met with the media recently. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in college football. And, again, I'm not a college football expert, and, I was doing some reading. I watched actually Greg McElroy do his show on the ESPN College Football YouTube channel, and just to kind of, get a better understanding as to what is happening. But, yeah, there's a lot going on. So, first of all, well, actually, I guess the main thing is talking about the college football playoff. So, obviously, they've been, meeting to, kind of finalize this thing. And the Big Ten commissioner, Tony Petitti, has reportedly discussed expanding beyond 12 teams to going from 12 to 14 to 16 teams. Which I thought was interesting. And the other thing, too, is you have the other thing is that Tennessee and Virginia, they're suing the NCAA because of, dealing with the NIL rules that were put in place a couple of years ago, for college athletes to, get paid, essentially, from their name, image, and likeness. And I guess what's happening is, the NCAA didn't like what they were doing, and now it just seems like they're starting beef with those two universities, and now the universities are going at the NCAA, and they're suing them because they feel like they're being wrongfully accused. So Basically, the NCAA responded to the antitrust lawsuit by Tennessee and Virginia. They're opposing the temporary restraining order on the name, image, and likeness rules, and they argue that denying the order is necessary to prevent chaos in college athletics. This highlights Tennessee state laws that supposedly preclude the NIL for recruiting and lack of evidence for irreparable harm. NCAA claims there is no evidence that student athletes' opportunities are being affected by the NIL rules. So basically, I mean, I guess this is something that's been stirring for a while now, that, universities don't really like what the NCAA is doing when it comes to these rules. And you also, now, the other big thing is the fact that you have the Big Ten and the SEC saying, all right, well, if you're not going to get your act together, we're going to take our business and, start our own thing. Because they're forming kind of a partnership, though. It says that they're going to be creating an advisory group. And these are all the big schools, like Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State. All those schools are going to basically say, okay, we're kind of done here, so we're going to do our own thing. And they have the power to do so. That's where all the big games are, is within those conferences. And, obviously, again, that ties it all back into the college football playoff because, again, it's not finalized yet. And I don't necessarily know how it's going to work, because does that mean, like, all the other conferences have a chance to, if you're expanding to all, to 12 teams, does that mean that the other conferences have a chance to, make it? And I don't know, because they're talking about the auto bids, 5 teams automatically making it in, and then you have the other spots that need to be filled. So I don't know. I mean, it's the other thing too is, does that water down the regular season? Because if you have all these teams making it, I mean, that means like maybe some of the games are less important. So there's that, and then you have also Florida State who doesn't want to be in the ACC anymore. They want to join, the Big Ten or the SEC, because they've just felt like we're never going to make it, because we're always, well, not that we're always, but that they were left out. I mean, they were left out this year. I mean, they went undefeated. They lost their starting quarterback, and they still got left out of the college football playoff. Now you expand it. I mean, you have a better chance, but there's a lot of realignments. Because obviously the Pac-12, there's only now 2 teams remaining. It's the Pac-2 now. It's Oregon State and I think, is it Oregon State and Washington State, I believe? Because I was looking at the conferences last night. So it would just be Oregon State and Washington State. That's what it is right now. Is just the Pac-2, I believe. So yeah, there's just like a lot going on. The NCAA is kind of like a mess right now with everything that's going on. You got teams that are suing them. You got, conferences forming partnerships. And then on top of that, the other thing from watching, Greg McElroy last night is just the fact that there's like a lot of coaches leaving college football to go get jobs in the NFL if the opportunities present themselves. Because, with, everything going on, the NIL rules and things like that, you got these coaches that have to deal with, their best players leaving, and then you have to start all over again. Now, in the NFL, there's obviously changes to a roster year to year, but you're not losing your star players. If you have your star players under contract, they're not going anywhere. In college, it's different. They could just transfer, if they don't like the situation they're in. So that's why a lot of these coaches, like you saw the Boston College head coach take a job, with the Packers. Chip Kelly's looking for an offensive coordinator job, because there's more stability there, and you don't have to deal with a massive overhaul to your roster, and you have to worry about recruiting students. It's just it's a lot. It's definitely a lot of information. So yeah, I mean, all this stuff is going to continue, and again, obviously, we got to see what happens with the college football playoff, and when you have the big conferences forming an alliance, basically, it's it's gonna be interesting to see how all this turns out. And obviously conference realignment, like I said, it's a lot. And again, we'll see what happens, in the coming months, and how, essentially how the college football playoff is going to play out with, it being 12 teams. It's supposed to be for the upcoming season, but only time will tell. But it really is, it's a lot of information. I mean, there's a lot going on. And also just the fact that, the domino effect that Nick Saban and Jim Harbaugh started, because now you had these coaches leaving some of their programs to go coach, in different places. It's a lot. And, again, something we'll keep an eye on, in the coming weeks, in the coming months, as well as we go from, they're in the off season. And of course, the NFL will be in the off season relatively soon as well. So speaking of that, just wanted to touch upon Roger Goodell's comments. So one of the biggest things is the fact that the NFL is going to be playing a game in Brazil opening weekend. They're going to be playing. It's going to be the Friday of opening weekend. So you're going to have the Super Bowl championship. The Super Bowl champions opening up their game the previous night, and then you're going to have another game. And it'll be the Philadelphia Eagles will be involved in that game. The opponent is to be determined. It's going to be an Eagles home game. I'm hoping that it's not the Giants. Just please don't pick the Giants. Pick anybody else. Just not the Giants. I don't know how I feel about this. It just seems like the NFL, I mean, before you know it, there's going to be a game played every single day, because we had that during COVID. I mean, now that we're kind of, away from the pandemic, I mean, you've had, the Black Friday game, obviously, this year. Now there's going to be this next year to go along with, Thursday night football and Monday night football and Saturday football and Sunday. It's just, again, like, it's great for the viewer, but, like, it's, again, you worry about the players and, how that affects them. Because, again, I mean, you've had players come out and talk about Thursday night football, just not, something that they, are on board with. And, that's something that they're going to, I guess, continue to do. And, obviously Thursday night football they're going to continue to do. But now they're, adding games on other days. I mean, now you got Friday. So, I mean, we'll see what how that plays out. Also, he talked about, the integrity of the game, because obviously, people talk about how maybe games are fixed, and, he talks about how, talked about the punishments that, players and, NFL staff could get if they're caught gambling. He stated that around 25 league employees and roughly 13 players have faced discipline for violating the league's gambling policy. So, I mean, listen, I understand, people's complaints. I mean, I complain too with some flags not being called, or being called that shouldn't have been called. But, I for the most part, I feel like the officials do a good job with the Super Bowl. It's just, the last couple of years, in big moments where flags really haven't been thrown the whole game. They get thrown at the very end. To be honest, that doesn't really sit well with me, But again, I mean, people get punished when they get caught. It's just, I don't know. It's tough for the NFL to kind of get a lot of these fans back on their side, because, I mean, it's just, this is something that people have speculated for so long, that games are supposedly fixed, or allegedly fixed, which I just feel like it's human error. Like, the officials just make bad calls, and they just are inconsistent. Now, it's something they got to work on to fix it. So, again, you get those fans that believe something else to be back on your side, but I don't know. It's a tough situation, but yeah, that's just a couple of things. And also, he did comment on how it's, the Taylor Swift effect is good for the NFL, and it is. It's good business. I mean, whether you like it or not, whether you like seeing her on your television screen or not, it's good business, because you're bringing in more viewers. And listen, she's going to be at the Super Bowl. She's going to be there. So she's going to be on screen quite a few times. So I mean, she's going to do everything she can to be at the game, But we'll see. So yeah, that's pretty much it when talking about these few topics. Let me know what you guys think about all this, because I know I kind of jumped around with the college football stuff. I did the best I could with talking about it, but yeah, just let me know. And also Roger Goodell's comments. What do you guys think about the game, the Brazil game that's going to be played on opening weekend with the Eagles? And again, the opponent will be to be determined. So just let me know in the comments or in the chat. So when we come back from our first break of the show, we will talk about the 49ers' journey back to the Super Bowl, because it's been quite a journey for them since the last time they played the Chiefs. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. Some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about the 49ers' journey back to the Super Bowl. And yeah, it's been a very interesting journey, to say the least. I mean, you go back to when not that they won the Super Bowl, but they lost the Super Bowl to the Chiefs. A lot of those guys, it was the first time they ever experienced, a Super Bowl, because those players are on this team. You look at George Kittle, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel. There's a handful of players from that game that are going to be playing in the game on Sunday. But then you also look at what happened the following season in 2020. You had the pandemic, but a lot of their players, got hurt. They had a ton of players that got hurt, especially in the game against the Jets in Week 2. You had Nick Bosa getting hurt. A lot of their defensive linemen, they got hurt in that game because of the field conditions, and even though it was a sunny day, but still, like, you know what I mean. Like, MetLife Stadium, there's been complaints about that turf for so long, and yeah, I mean, key players got hurt. Raheem Mostert as well. I think he got hurt in that game too. There was just a lot of players that got hurt, and well, not even just that game, but throughout the season. Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt. George Kittle was hurt. The team and they ended up missing the playoffs just because, again, they dealt with so many injuries, and they weren't able to try to get back to the Super Bowl that year just because of all the injuries that they had to deal with. I mean, you had Nick Mullins playing, right? Nick Mullins played during the year. I think he did. But yeah, it just was not. It was not a good season for the 49ers in 2020. And also, the other thing, too, is I didn't realize this, but they, but also that, they got booted out of, Levi Stadium. They had to go play in the I forgot about that. They did play in the Cardinals Stadium, because, there was the COVID ban on contact sports. Like, you couldn't do that. So they had to go play in Arizona for their home games. Because they had to play the Commanders, or the Washington football team at the time, I believe. And then they also played the Seahawks in the final game of the regular season. So You had players that rented out homes, staying in hotel. Teams had to stay in the hotel. It just was a mess. I mean, that season in general was, a mess. I mean, again, still, it was fun to watch it, of course. But it just was, I mean, with that, when it comes to situations like that, it was just, it was a disaster. So then you had the following season. Jimmy Garoppolo, is the quarterback. They drafted Trey Lance, who was going to learn under Garoppolo. Then Garoppolo gets hurt, and you had Trey Lance start a couple of games during that season. Garoppolo comes back, and the team makes the playoffs. They beat the Cowboys in the first round. They beat the Packers, the number 1 seeded Packers, in Lambeau in the second round. And then you get to the championship game. And, they had the lead, but they ended up losing to the Rams. And they actually, they beat the Rams the final week of the regular season. They were losing that game. They came back to win that, and that's how they clinched the playoffs to make it. That was a great game. But yeah, they lost in the NFC Championship game to the Rams. And then the following season, Trey Lance, he starts out as the quarterback, and then he ends up getting hurt. So they got to put Garoppolo back in, and the 49ers, again, they looked pretty good throughout the season, of course. And then Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt against the Dolphins. They put in Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's the starter the rest of the way, and we know the rest of the story. They make it to the championship game again against the Eagles, and Brock Purdy gets hurt on the first drive of the game. He gets hit in the arm, ends up having to get surgery in the offseason. And, the 49ers were just without a quarterback, basically, because then Josh Johnson came in. He ends up getting hurt, and they basically had to have Christian McCaffrey. And, Brock Purdy they put back in the game, but he just couldn't throw it. He threw, little dump-offs. And, that was how that season ended last year. And now they find themselves back in the Super Bowl. Brock Purdy, his first full season as a starter, and they make it back to the Super Bowl. So it's been a while, and they are facing a familiar foe in the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, people point to 2019. That was probably the better team. I think for me personally, I think Brock Purdy, and people would say this, is an upgrade over Jimmy Garoppolo. And also because Brock Purdy is, you see it, you could say whatever you want about him, his arm, whatever. He can move out of the pocket. He can run a little bit. And that is something that Garoppolo, Garoppolo did it, not as much as Purdy. Purdy could take off and run with it. Now, he's not an elite runner like Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes, but he can move out of the pocket when he has to. And I think that makes it, that's why I would say, what Brock Purdy's been able to do with the Niners, he's done it better than any Niners quarterback that Kyle Shanahan has had. Trey Lance was supposed to be that guy, but we never really got a chance to see what he could do because he was getting hurt. And same thing with Garoppolo. And obviously they have Christian McCaffrey now, who is the best running back in the NFL. So, and we'll talk about Media Day, of course, in the next segment. But, the game plan is to give Christian McCaffrey the ball. You could tell from even what George Kittle was saying, talking about blocking for McCaffrey. We got to give it to McCaffrey a bunch of times. That is the game plan for the Niners in this game, is give the ball to Christian McCaffrey. And, again, like I've been saying it so many times, I'm hoping it's a good game. I'm worried for the Niners, but again, they have a lot of firepower on offense, and they will put up points in this game. I don't think the Chiefs defense is going to shut them down, but the Chiefs defense is going to give them a hard time. They definitely are, because the Chiefs defense is pretty good themselves, But and it's a redemption for Kyle Shanahan, because obviously, again, I keep saying it, part of the collapse against the Patriots, and of course they blew the 10-point lead against the Chiefs in the fourth quarter. So they're trying to get the job done this time, and they have the team to do it. This team was at one point was the best team in the NFL, but then they went on that losing streak, and obviously, especially after they got dominated by the Ravens on Christmas, they weren't looked at as the best team anymore. And now you see how the Chiefs have been rolling, and they're just not fazed by playing on the road in the playoffs. I mean, and I didn't think they would get phased, but I did pick them to lose the championship game. It's going to be a tough game. But again, for the 49ers, you don't have to deal with Tyreek Hill at least, so that helps. But, stopping the run has kind of been a problem these last couple of games, and obviously still got to deal with Travis Kelce, who's been on a tear recently. The Chiefs are going to move the ball. They are. And, we'll see what Steve Spagnuolo has planned for the Chiefs this time around. We'll see what he cooks up. But, the fact that the 49ers are back here, with this core, I mean, I want to see these guys win a Super Bowl. I think they deserve it. I know for some reason, again, looking at social media, a lot of people just don't like the 49ers either. They're like, this is going to be a boring Super Bowl. This is going to be the worst Super Bowl ever. It's like, no, it's not. The Super Bowl is going to be entertaining. You got stars all over the place. It's going to be a good Super Bowl. It might not be the Super Bowl you want, but for me, I think it's going to be a good one. Now, last year's, is it going to top last year's? We'll see. 38-35, the final score of that game was. I expect a lot of points to be scored in this game. Now, again, last year, the 49ers and the Chiefs played each other, and Mahomes threw for over 400 yards. That worries me a little bit. I mean, we'll see what happens this time around. Knocked out my my earpiece here. But, again, just hoping for a good game. But really, when it comes to this topic, I mean, yeah, it's the 49ers have dealt with some changes, particularly at quarterback. Trey Lance was supposed to be the guy. I mean, they traded a lot of assets to get Trey Lance, to move up in the draft to get Trey Lance, and it just never panned out. They ended up taking Brock Purdy with the final pick in the draft, and now he's their quarterback. Also another thing too is the 49ers were complaining about the field they were practicing on, because the Chiefs are technically the home team, so they were practicing in the Raiders facility. So the 49ers, they were practicing on a field that the conditions they said were spongy. The field was spongy. What they were practicing on, I thought I put the notes. So they were practicing on the UNLV practice field in Vegas, of course, and they alleged that the field was overly soft and improperly prepared by the league, causing concerns about footing and playability. The complaints have been ongoing since last week, with the team seeking potential alternate practice sites, but no resolution has been reached. Roger Goodell defended the field, stating that it met proper thresholds and was within testing standards, and that experts and neutral field inspectors unanimously agreed it was playable. Players Association took issue with Goodell's assertion that they had signed off on the field surface, but they didn't provide further comment before their news conference later in the week. And this is the second straight Super Bowl using a natural grass field with a tray system, which becomes problematic in the previous year's matchup due to surface slippage. Yeah, because last year, I mean, you remember the Eagles were complaining about how they kept slipping on the field, and now this year it's becoming the same issue supposedly. So we'll keep an eye. I mean, again, because you don't want to risk injury. That's the other thing. But again, that's just another thing. But Kyle Shanahan said that he wasn't worried about it. I know the 49ers as a team were. I know I saw one of the headlines when I was reading up on it last night. The 49ers, or Kyle Shanahan, said he's not really worried about it. But again, we're getting closer and closer to the big game. Again, it's we're just going to be beating it on the head the whole week. Until we get to Friday, obviously, because that's when we'll talk about the game itself. I mean, I know I've talked about it a little bit, and you kind of know where I'm leaning. But obviously, like, Friday will be the true, like, we're previewing the Super Bowl. Here we go. But, yeah, I mean, listen, it's, again, it's great that the 49ers are back here, in my opinion. Again, let's see if they can get it done. I want to see, look, I want to see these players that they have win a ring. I think they deserve it. But they got to go up against the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's not going to be easy. It is not going to be easy at all. They got their hands full, obviously going up against the best quarterback in the NFL, and we'll see what happens. But we will continue our discussion with the Super Bowl when we come back, because we'll talk about Media Day. But before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys once again, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, when we come back from our second break of the show, we will talk about Media Day. We'll talk about what some of the players had to say, and I'll give you my some of my takeaways from that. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, I'll give you my takeaways from Super Bowl Media Day. So, I think the biggest takeaway I had was the Chiefs are embracing being the villain. Patrick Mahomes talking about it, Travis Kelce, because when Travis Kelce started, when they were interviewing the tight ends and the running backs, they had McCaffrey, Pacheco, Kittle, and Kelce all together. Kelce started talking. I mean, the crowd just immediately started booing. And Kelce's like, I'm ready to play right now. And then you had, Mahomes saying, 49ers Nation, I hear you, we're here, or whatever he said. It's just, they and Mahomes even said, like, they like being the villain. And Chris Jones said, why does everybody hate us now all of a sudden? But yeah, I mean, they've kind of taken over that role as being the villain. I mean, now that the Patriots kind of, what's happened to them over the last couple of years with Brady leaving and now Belichick being gone, they kind of have now taken their place as the villain. I mean, this is their fourth Super Bowl in 5 years. They're trying to become the first team since the Patriots to win back-to-back Super Bowls. And, obviously there's a lot of other things, surrounding the Chiefs that fans don't necessarily like. Again, the Taylor Swift coverage. There's a lot going on that the fans are kind of just tired of the Chiefs. And also, like, with talking about, the Chiefs get all the flags and, how Mahomes was upset over the, the call in the Bills game, the offensive offsides. Even though, I'll be honest, now, it was the right call, but I think also, can we also say that it had to do with Mahomes just being frustrated over what's been going on, at least during the regular season? Because his receiver, I mean, again, they led the league in drops. I mean, of course, that was going to, he can only contain his anger for so long. I mean, he looked like he wanted to fight, one of the refs because the players were holding him back. But yeah, I mean, the Chiefs, they got a cockiness to them right now in this game. You kind of feel that. And I mean, listen, they've won a lot, so that's going to happen. I mean, rightfully so. Now, also, I mean, they're playing in Vegas, so, the 49ers faithful, they travel well. They're going to show up. I mean, there was definitely a lot more Niners fans there last night than Chiefs fans. Because literally, when Chris Jones was saying Chiefs Kingdom, and then you just heard boos. You really didn't hear a lot of cheers. But I mean, listen, the Chiefs are going to embrace it. It's not going to faze them. I did like, however, though, like you had Kittle and Kelce, when they were asked like who's the best tight end out of you two, and they're like, well, the good thing is it's a team sport. They deflected from that question. Listen, both of them are two of the best tight ends in the NFL. Top 3 tight ends in the NFL. And of course they're not going to answer that question because they're going to say, well, I think I'm better. But I mean, to me, they're the top 3. I mean, obviously, Kittle has dealt with some injuries. Kelsey was banged up this year, and you see some of the other tight ends. Obviously not in this game on other teams. You saw what Sam Laporta did this year, the rookie tight end T.J. Hawkinson. There's a decent amount of tight ends, good tight ends in the NFL. Mark Andrews, obviously, but he got banged up this year. But these are the 2 best tight ends. Those 2 guys. Obviously there was some Taylor Swift questions asked, towards Travis Kelce. I mean, he said she's a part of Chiefs Kingdom, so I don't know how Chiefs Kingdom. I mean, I guess Chiefs Kingdom appreciates that. The other 31 fan bases maybe not so much. But I mean, listen. I mean, she's not going away. She is going to. If she's at the game, they're gonna show her. They are going to show her. But I mean, again, it's only for a few seconds. I mean, listen, again, like I think at times it's a little too much. I mean, when you had social media posts on how she can make it to the Super Bowl from her concert in Japan, it's like, okay, that's great, but I don't know. That stuff I understand. But I mean, if she's on the screen for a couple of seconds, I mean, it's like, let's relax. It's not like they got a little box in the corner of her and you have the game, or the game is you just have like a Taylor Swift cam and then the game's like, minimized and it's in the corner of your screen. Like it's not taking away from any of the game action. I don't know. But I get it. I understand. And the 49ers, Brock Purdy was asked, if they get the ball at the end of the game, are you gonna disappoint Taylor Swift or whatever was said, and Brock Purdy was like, yeah, and without any hesitation, it's yeah. With the 49ers, listen, I mean, like I talked about in the last segment, I mean, it's going to be tough to beat the Chiefs, and how they've played the last couple of weeks, they can't afford to fall behind in this game. They really can't. I mean, I don't know how many times I'm going to say it, from talking about just this one game. But, they can't afford it. They got to be the 49ers team that they were during the regular season, where they're just, they get off to a hot start, because it really is concerning how they just how slow they've started off in games, and against bad defenses. I mean, the Packers was a hit or miss, during the year, and then also the Lions' pass defense was not good, but. They I mean, listen, they were down 24-7. I mean, they came back, but I don't think you're going to be able to do that against the Chiefs, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, I mean, listen, and obviously, Mahomes, when they were cheering for Brock Purdy, he was definitely you saw that he was, showing Purdy a little bit of support there. Because again, it's been a journey for Brock Purdy. Being that last pick, being the third quarterback on the roster, and now you're at this point. I mean, it's 2 completely different, paths. You had Mahomes sitting behind Alex Smith, for a year, and then he steps in as the starter, and then we know what happened after that. Brock Purdy kind of just got thrown in when Garoppolo got hurt, and now they're back. Now they're in the Super Bowl. They made it to the championship game. Now they're in the Super Bowl, and we'll see what happens in this game. But it doesn't get any easier. Now you're playing against one of the best defenses in the NFL this year, in the Kansas City Chiefs. You're gonna have to deal with Chris Jones coming at you, and Obviously, the secondary has been very good for the Chiefs. So, yeah, I mean, the 49ers are going to have their hands full. But the good thing is they have a lot of playmakers. So, and even, like, we talk about the main guys. But, you also got Juwan Jennings that has made plays for them. He had that one-handed catch in the playoff game against the Lions. So, he can make plays for you. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, again, like, we still got, 3 more days after today to talk about this. But look, I'm excited for the game. I am. And, obviously media day, it gets you hyped up. Obviously when you had, the teams coming out for it, being announced, and, the crowd's getting hyped up and the Chiefs are getting booed. I mean, the Chiefs, again, you're not going to rattle the Chiefs. I don't think the 49ers are going to rattle the Chiefs, but, it's, they're going to have to bring it. They really are if they're going to want to beat them. But the biggest takeaway for me is just the fact that they are really embracing being the villain. And we should be terrified because I mean they could be on their way to winning another Super Bowl and officially being a dynasty. Like I said, they are on the doorstep of being a dynasty. If they get it done this year, I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, you could definitely say they are one right now, but you get that third championship, and especially making it to the Super Bowl again. 4 out of the last 5 years. I mean, what else do they have to do? Nothing. I mean, they'd be a dynasty. And what's crazy is now Eric Bieniemy, who left to go be the offensive coordinator for the Commanders. Now with Dan Quinn being brought in and Cliff Kingsbury, Bieniemy's out. So he left Kansas City, took a job elsewhere, and now he's a free agent. So maybe we'll see if the Chiefs maybe bring him back. We'll see what happens there, but that's just something else I wanted to throw in to go along with this, but. Yeah, I mean, this Chiefs team is a little different. Again, it's not the offensive juggernaut that we were accustomed to seeing. Now the defense, again, the best defense Patrick Mahomes has played with. It's a little different this time around when these two teams are meeting up. And obviously the 49ers, adding Christian McCaffrey was huge. What a great pickup that was, last year. I mean, listen, if Brock Purdy doesn't get hurt in the championship game, I would have loved to have seen how that game would have played out if Purdy was healthy. I mean, again, we saw, how they played, against the Eagles this year, but I don't know if we would have got that, but we definitely would have got a much better game than what we got when Purdy got hurt. But yeah, I mean, listen, they're back here again, and we'll see if they can get it done now with Purdy as the quarterback. Because again, like I talked about, Brock Purdy's mobile. He can move around a little bit. So, and that's something they didn't really have with Garoppolo. So we'll see. And again, George Kittle was talking about Christian McCaffrey, how, we're going to give the ball to him a bunch of times. And, he's talking about blocking for him. That's going to be their focus is we got to get the ball to McCaffrey. Because, the Chiefs, not the best at stopping the run. I mean, James Cook was finding success against them, against the when they played the Bills, and they got McCaffrey. That you got Elijah Mitchell, Brock Purdy, obviously can run the ball too. But I mean, I think that's only when he has to. I mean, you're going to see Deebo Samuel coming out of the backfield as well. Again, the 49ers have a ton of playmakers. So again, the Chiefs defense has been stout this year. But the 49ers have a ton of playmakers. So it's going to be a good matchup. Going to be a good matchup. And we'll see what the 49ers defense has, to try to, slow down this Kansas City Chiefs offense, which is just, they've been on fire. Now, again, the Ravens, they shut them out in the championship game in the second half. But I don't know. I don't think the Niners are going to do that. The Niners are going to have to get to Mahomes. You got to sack him. You got to get to him, put pressure on him, and you just got to hope that, he doesn't scramble out of it and take off for, like he did last year's Super Bowl. He had that big run, at the end of the game that set up the field goal. again, we'll see what happens. I mean, again, we got 3 more days to talk about this game. There's a lot of different angles you could take when discussing it, but yeah, so that's really my takeaways from the game, from media day, is the fact that the Chiefs are really just embracing being the villain. I mean, that's the main thing from what I'm seeing. But yeah, so we'll continue our discussion with the Super Bowl, because when we come back, I'll talk about the starter rankings list that I saw on CBS. I'll give you my thoughts on that, and that is what we will do when we come back from our final break of the show. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about CBS releasing a list of the starter rankings going into Super Bowl 58. I mean, number one is probably not surprising. It's obviously Patrick Mahomes, but yeah, I mean they rank every starter. So we go down to like 46. It starts from 46, and then we work our way up. I'm not going to go that far down. We'll go into, like, I'll say, like, the top 20, I guess, top 21. 21, they got Rashee Rice. Obviously, had a good rookie season. Really came on strong in the second half of the season for the Kansas City Chiefs. And they really needed him to, because their receiving core just was kind of a mess. I actually did forget to mention, because they did interview Kadarius Toney. And again, I think I did bring this up, but he was saying how they kind of altered what was said on his Instagram Live, like he wasn't taking shots at the Chiefs. And he was asked by, I think it was Michael Robinson was interviewing him, and he asked him, oh, do you view yourself as a number one wide receiver in this league? And he's like, if I get the ball. Well, here's the thing. You've gotten the ball, but you've dropped it, and it's kind of led to interceptions. One of them was a pick six, which kind of led to you losing the first game of the regular season. Also, when Mahomes threw you a pass that was going to, get you into field goal range, and Harrison Butker was going to, kick a field goal to win the game for you, most likely, you dropped that as well. So, yeah, I mean, again, this is coming from a Giant fan, but, again, like, Kadarius Toney has shown flashes, but it's just he's always hurt, and especially this year, it's been rough. And on top of that, I mean, he also was responsible for lining up off sides. But again, whatever. So, Rashee Rice, though, has been their best receiver. He has been their best receiver. And, I think he'll have a big game here in the Super Bowl. But yeah, he was ranked at 21. Then you got Trey Smith, one of the Chiefs guards. Chiefs have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. I mean, kind of went through some changes because now you have Juwan Taylor and Donovan Smith now at the tackle positions, because you did have Orlando Brown, who then went to the Bengals. But one thing Nick Bosa said is they like to they hold a lot. So we'll see if they get any holding calls in the Super Bowl. Then you got Trey Smith, one of their guards at 20. Then 19, you got Eric Armstead. Now on the interior, rushing the passer. Again, he was a part of that Super Bowl team back in 2019 with the Niners. Then you got George Karlaftis, another defensive end for the Kansas City Chiefs at 18. Dre Greenlaw, they have at 17. The 49ers, one of the 49ers linebackers to go along with Fred Warner, who's a little higher on the list. Isaiah Pacheco at 16. Charvarius Ward is at 15. Their corner. And, listen, the secondary of the Niners, that's probably one of the weaknesses of the team. And but you know what, Charvarius Ward has had a good season, and he's going to have to come up big in this game here against the Chiefs. Also, you got L'Jarius Sneed, who's had a great year for the Chiefs. Their lockdown corner at 14. They actually have Brock Purdy at 13, which, maybe he was put, because I saw in the comments people were like, wow, he's that low. I mean, it's hard to argue with some of the players that are ahead of him. I mean, he is one of the quarterbacks that is playing in this game, so you would think he'd be a little bit higher, but they got him all the way down at 13. Then you got Creed Humphrey, the center of the Chiefs, who's been one of the best centers in the NFL ever since he's been drafted. I mean, after that Bucs Super Bowl, I mean, the Chiefs really prioritized rebuilding this offensive line. I mean, you drafted Creed Humphrey, you signed Joe Thuney, who actually I don't think is playing in the Super Bowl, which is a huge loss there. The Chiefs really did a great job fixing that offensive line. And you know what's crazy? They did that in one off season. Where you look at the Giants, it's taken them, 10 plus years to try to fix it. And I mean, they finally got a left tackle, but they still got to work on the other positions on that line. But the Chiefs did it in like that. You get Joe Thuney, you get Orlando Brown, you draft Creed Humphrey, and you're great. You make it back to the AFC Championship game. Although they did lose to the Bengals, but then the year after that they made it to the Super Bowl, and now they're back in the Super Bowl again. With the Giants, I mean, they still haven't been able to fix it. Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk are at 11 and 10 on this list. Again, it's hard because a lot of these. I mean, again, there's a lot of star players in this game. And I think for me, I'm more of an offensive guy, so maybe I'm just biased because I want to see them higher. But I mean, I can't argue with some of these guys. You also got Trent McDuffie, another corner at 9. Again, I mean, this Chiefs secondary has been really good, and that was a weakness of their team for a while. But you know what? They've been able to fix it. And again, this defense has been really good this year, and he's been a part of that. So then at number 8, you got George Kittle. I mean, again, I don't know. I just feel like, it's a matter of opinion. I mean, I feel like, this is not the end-all, be-all. You got Kittle at 8. So Fred Warner's at 7. Nick Bosa's at 6. Chris Jones is at 5. I don't know. I feel like Deebo Samuel should be in the top 10. I mean, him being at 11, I feel like he should be in the top 10 somewhere. And then you got Travis Kelce at 4. You also have Trent Williams. He's at 3. The top 2 is Christian McCaffrey at 2. And then you got Patrick Mahomes at 1, which, again, I can't argue with. I think that's really the only one where I'm kind of just like, yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that. It's Patrick Mahomes. I mean, it's, the best quarterback in the NFL. So I can't really, argue with that. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard. That's why I look at other people's lists, because I'll be honest, I don't like doing rankings. I really just don't like doing it because it's hard. I mean, you're right. I mean, listen, they went out of their way to rank every starter in this game. I mean, I couldn't do that. This is from Pete Prisco on CBS. I mean, I can't rank all 46 starters. It's hard. I mean, again, top 10. Again, it depends on what your preference. I feel like it's your preference. If you're a defensive guy or an offensive guy. Because I just feel like with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, they should be a little bit higher. I mean, Purdy should be a little bit higher. Even Pacheco, at 16. I mean, Trent Williams you got in the top 3 just because he's, one of the best left tackles in the NFL. I mean, but it's hard. It really is difficult. But yeah, so the top 10 is Ayuk, Trent McDuffie. Actually, you know what? I feel like Debo should be higher than Ayuk. Because Debo Samuel could, they got him lining up out of the backfield, and, he could do a lot of different things. But, I mean, again, it's a matter of opinion. I'd probably put Debo over Ayuk. But yeah, so you got Ayuk, McDuffie, Kittle, Warner, Bosa, Jones, Kelsey, Williams, McCaffrey, Mahomes. That's the top 10 right there. I mean, you look at now, you go down a little bit further. You go past, you go down the list. You got Lenore at 22. Another one of the 49ers corners. 23, Joshua Williams, another corner for the Chiefs. Javon Hargrave. How about Javon Hargrave? He was with the Eagles, then he's like, all right, I'm going to sign with the 49ers now. And now you're in back-to-back Super Bowls. Not bad for him. And then you got Nick Bolton at 25, Chase Young at 26. I mean, the way people have been talking about Chase Young, he should be even lower with the effort. He has 4 sacks since coming over in Week 10, but none in the playoffs. Just in the description here, and his run defense has been suspect. Yeah, I mean, I talked about it. The effort on the Jahmyr Gibbs touchdown, and Steve Wilkes, the defensive coordinator, he was really upset with the effort, in that game against the Lions. You cannot do that against the Chiefs, because now you got Isaiah Pacheco coming in, so you got to go up against. So it's not gonna get easier, So the effort's got to be there. You got Drew Tranquil, Justin Reed. Does he have the kickers on this list? No, he does not. I feel like you got to include the kickers on here. That's interesting. I mean, obviously you'd put Harrison Butker over Jake Moody, but that's also something else that I don't think really. I mean, it definitely is talked about, but is the special teams, because Jake Moody. He's been shaky this year for the Niners. And Harrison Butker, I mean, he did not miss really this year, except, when I really needed him to on Christmas. What if the 49ers are driving to tie this game to have it go into overtime, and you got Jake Moody having to line up to kick a field goal? Are you going to have confidence he's going to make the kick? I mean, again, depends on where it is. But even if it's within his range, are you going to have full confidence that he's going to make that kick? Because, again, he's been shaky. I mean, they lost to the Browns earlier this year because he missed a couple of field goals. Again, he missed one in the Lions game. I don't know. Did he? I think he missed. Did he also miss in the Packers game too? I think he might have. Or that might have just been Carlson. Because Carl. Well, I mean, we know Carl. Oh, and my dog just is going crazy now. Yeah, you know what's crazy? She's been good lately. We haven't had that problem. But yeah, wait, let me go back really quick. Oh, that scared me. Anyways, because what happens is she lays right outside my door, and of course, somebody comes home and she goes ballistic. Oh yeah, he did miss a field goal against the Packers. But yeah, I mean, I'd be worried if I was a Niners fan when it comes to. I mean, I think Niners fans are worried, but yeah, I mean. You had Robbie Gould, who was a good kicker for you, and now you bring in Jake Moody, and he's been shaky. Let's see. Let's look at his stats. So he was. He had an 84%. His longest field goal was 57 yards. Okay. 21 to 25 on the season. And he's a rookie kicker. I mean, we'll see. I mean, you're kicking on the biggest stage in the Super Bowl. We'll see. Yeah, he was 1 for 1 from 50-plus yards. He was 1 for 3 in the 40 to 49-yard range. So, and listen, if he's kicking if he's kicking from that range, it got to be a little nervous. I mean, Harrison Butker's automatic, pretty much. But that's just another little thing I wanted to touch upon. Is just the special teams. That's something that really hasn't been talked about because I don't trust that kicker. I really don't. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it with the show for today. Obviously, again, you got 3 more days to discuss this game. We'll come up with some other topics to discuss throughout the week. and Friday we'll preview the game, and then we'll see what happens. But let me know what you guys think about everything that was talked about today. I tried to jam in a lot of stuff. Obviously, the college football stuff, I did the best I could with trying to at least explain what's going on. Obviously, there's people out there more knowledgeable than me when it comes to college football. So obviously, if you have an opinion on it and you want to, comment on it, make sure to leave a comment. I'll make sure to have all the, the segments reposted later in the day. And make sure, and also the podcasts are on Spotify and Apple Music and wherever you get your podcasts as well. So if you want to listen to them, and go back and listen to some of the old shows, you can do that. Also, make sure to tune into our other podcasts as well. Not college basketball, the Andrew Tate Cast, and the sports podcast. And we got some other ones coming out as well too in the coming weeks. So make sure to look out for those. But yeah, we got a lot of content. It's not just me. You don't have to listen to just me or watch me. There's other shows now that you could tune into. Everybody does a great job. Again, I'm just happy it's not just me. Again, I was getting lonely, so it's nice to have other people, doing shows as well now. But yeah, no, it's been great. So with that is all the time that we have for today. I thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.